the fact that he is so short.
Skip, that's a small man. I get it, he's extremely talented. I said, but Skip, he never gonna be 6'3". He never gonna wear 230. Yep. And just the fact that 300, 280, 300-pound men falling on him.
Kyler Murray, before Call of Duty is released in the fall, he averages 22.5 fantasy points per game. And after it's released every fall, he averages 17.4 fantasy points per game.
Why is he so bad in close games? 19, 32-1 in one-score games.
The GD shame that they just gave a man $230 million and they got to stipulate that you take your ass home and study outside of the facility.
That film study must be uninterrupted. No second screening. You can't be scrolling Twitter or watching television or playing Call of Duty.
Kyler Murray has unfollowed the Cardinals on all social media without any obvious reason why.
From 2012 to 2014, Kyler Murray was the best thing in the entire state of Texas. His 42-0 run earned him the top vote as the best high school football quarterback over some dogs like Drew Brees, even Matthew Stafford. He then only went on to play one full season as a starter in college, which was all he needed to earn the Heisman Trophy. In 2018 alone, he received every award you can think of. This kid couldn't do no wrong in anyone's eyes, especially being the size he was, 5'10", 200 pounds. It was absolutely insane watching this man shred the field on Saturdays. But now, Kyler is going into his 8th season in the league, and he's a headline machine for all the wrong reasons. Call of Duty jokes. Look at this dog walk! Whoa! Sideline blowups, contract drama, and a franchise that's constantly stuck asking the same question: is he the problem or is it us? Cause look, you don't give a man $230 million, then write in the contract, please watch film and study. That's not something you tell a guy who's supposed to be the leader of your team.
I'm honestly flattered that y'all think that at my size I can go out there and not prepare for the game and not, not take it serious.
So where did it all go wrong for him? To answer that, we must go back to one of the greatest high school football careers in the state of Texas.
If you know anything about Texas high school football, I would say his resume and what he did makes him hands down the best Texas high school football player to ever play.
Player, not just quarterback, player.
Ever in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Kyler Murray, from the time he was a sophomore, was the most polished quarterback I've ever seen in high school.
Under the Friday Night Lights in Texas, young Kyler Murray was him. At Allen High School, he was literally unbeatable. He posted a perfect 42-0 record as a starter, leading his team to 3 straight state championships. From his sophomore to senior season, he had 117 touchdowns to only 22 interceptions. This man had less than 10 picks each season. That's just unheard of. Longtime great Texas coaches who've seen generations of talent came away calling Kyler the greatest high school player they ever witnessed. Even iconic coach Barry Switzer was left mind blown, saying he recruited for 60 years and seen it all, but Kyler was just on a different level. Week after week, the stands were packed out just to watch one kid turn high school defenses into his personal highlight reel. Bro had a cannon on him, and his joystick quick feet made his opponents look silly. If social media like TikTok or IG Reels was a thing back then, his edits would go crazy. Here's the thing though, football wasn't the full story. Kyler was cold at baseball too. And I'm not talking pretty good, not could have played in college. I'm talking first round draft pick code. In 2018, Oakland A's drafted him 9th overall in the first round. Yes, first round of the MLB draft. Think about that. A top 10 baseball pick who was also a star college quarterback. The sports world hadn't seen anything like it, and for good reason. He made US sporting history as the first athlete ever to be selected in the opening rounds of both the NFL and MLB drafts. Most athletes struggle to be elite at one thing. Kyler, he was casually elite at 2. Yeah, football was Kyler's first love, and he proved that by returning to the University of Oklahoma in 2018 to only play one hell of a season. All he did was torch college defenses, 4,300 passing yards, 42 touchdowns, 1,000 plus rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns, video game numbers. He led Oklahoma to a 12-2 record and a playoff berth, won the Heisman Trophy as the nation's top player, and made it all look easy.
The 2018 Heisman Trophy is awarded to Kyler Murray of Oklahoma University.
A Heisman winning quarterback who was also a first-round baseball talent, Kyler was rewriting the rules of what sports prodigy could be. Then April 2019 hits. Arizona just went 3-13, their worst in 18 years, now sitting with the first overall pick. And instead of easing into a rebuild, they blew the whole thing up. They fired head coach Steve Wilkes after just 1 year and traded away Josh Rosen, who they had just drafted with the 10th overall pick the year before. You don't see that in the NFL. Teams don't usually admit making mistakes that fast. This was the second year in a row the Cardinals were looking to draft a quarterback in the first round. And to them, Kyler was their guy.
You ready to roll?
With the first pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Kyler Murray.
Arizona even handpicked Cliff Kingsbury as their new head coach, an air raid offensive guru guy who already said months earlier while coaching at Texas Tech,
Kyler is, he's a freak, man. Purdy's a really good young player, and he's going to be a tremendous player, but Kyler is a freak. I've never seen him have a poor outing, not one, which at quarterbacks it's impossible to do, but he's done it.
In other words, Arizona didn't just draft Kyler, they rebuilt the franchise around him. The Cardinals were entrusting their future in a 5'10" dual sport quarterback, a move that has some people raising their eyebrows.
But he's entirely too small to be behind. I'm talking about to spend the #1 overall pick. No, I wouldn't do it.
Skip, that's a small man. I get it. He's extremely talented. I said, but Skip, he never going to be 6'3". He never going to wear 230.
On paper, it looked like the perfect marriage though. Kingsbury had known Kyler since his teens. He even recruited him in high school. Now the two were finally united again. He's a dynamic, unique talent that I don't know if anyone has seen, Cliff has said on draft night. Even GM Steve Keim, who was initially skeptical about giving a franchise to a 5'10" quarterback so soon after drafting Rosen just a year prior, said that as soon as he started watching film on Kyler, he knew that's who they were going with next. So as Kyler entered the NFL, the stage was set in a way we almost never see it. A franchise had given him the keys from day one. No veteran bridge quarterback, no waiting on the sidelines. From the moment he was drafted, it was his team. The expectations sky high, the hype off the charts. In the span of a few years, Kyler had gone from one of the best players in the state of Texas to the face of an NFL franchise. Cardinal fans were hype. Even the doubters had to admit the Kyler Murray experiment would be fascinating to watch. The Prodigy had finally arrived in the big leagues, and everyone was about to see if the kid with a golden arm and video game feet could ignite a struggling franchise, only to find out things aren't always as they seem. 22 years old, barely 5'10", walking into the NFL can seem a little scary, but Kyler trotted out as the Cardinals' week 1 starting quarterback, ready to take on whatever came his way. To him, the only thing that changed from his days in Texas was just the stage and the level of play. But remember, this was a 3-13 team just a year before. Dead and last in offense, no rhythm, no identity. Week 1 against Detroit felt like a reality check at first. They were down 18 by the 4th quarter. A great welcome to the NFL, right? But here's the thing about Kyler, he never panicked. Out of nowhere, something flips, and he looks settled. And he engineered a comeback to force overtime, finishing with over 300 yards passing in a 27-27 tie. Even Cliff was amazed.
A great job fighting and bringing us back, being down 18 in your first start and finding a way to get back. That's impressive. So I was really proud of his effort.
It was pretty ugly at first, but you just gotta stay the course.
However, Arizona's overall record only improved modestly in 2019. 5-10-1, nothing too special, but the energy completely different. Kyler throws for 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, adds over 500 yards on the ground like it was just part of the routine. Him and Cam Newton became the only rookie quarterbacks ever to go 3,500 passing yards and 500 rushing touchdowns in a season. And for the first time in a while, Arizona wasn't just surviving Sundays, they were competing. The offense had jumped from dead last to the middle of the pack. And middle of the pack doesn't sound flashy until you remember where they started, dead last. Kyler didn't fix everything, but he changed the temperature. Every week, there was at least one play where you just had to pause it like, what the hell did I just see? A scramble drill that turned into a 25-yard strike, a no-look flick across his body, a spin move that felt disrespectful. Larry Fitzgerald called him Houdini back there and said that the future was bright.
Playing quarterback in the National Football League is the hardest thing to do in sports. His demeanor, like I talked about earlier, serves him well. He doesn't really get too high, never really gets too low.
And that baseball background, he was still using that a little bit, and you could see it. That quick release, the smooth slides, the way he'd reset his platform on a move, just like he was turning a double play. He even admitted his baseball home sliding made getting down a lot smoother than other players. And let me be honest, there were some rookie mistakes, of course. 12 interceptions, 48 sacks. Some games where he held the ball a tick too long trying to be Superman. But here's the difference. Even in the mistakes, you could see the upside. From the front office to the coaching staff, the Cardinals made it clear that they were all in on their young quarterback. They tore up the old playbook and built a new one tailored to Kyler's unique skill set. Shotgun formations, 4 wide spread concepts, up-tempo pace, all the things he thrived with in college. Unlike many rookies who are asked to manage the game cautiously, Kyler was encouraged to create. That's trust. And the league noticed as he grabbed the Offensive Rookie of the Year. By the end of 2019, the conversation wasn't, is he too small? It was, how high is the ceiling? Because the Prodigy had officially touched the league, and it didn't look overwhelmed. The organization had committed to writing out any bumps on the learning curve because they knew that they had something special on their center. As GM Steve vowed when discussing the team's direction, we're not going to get into the business of letting good football players walk out of here. In other words, Kyler Murray was their guy, the centerpiece of the franchise rebuild, and they were going to rebuild around him come hell or high water. And now it was about to get serious, because once you win early like that, once the league sees what you can be, the expectations change. Year 2 wasn't about proving he belonged, it was about proving he could take control, and that's when things started to feel different. If year 1 was the spark, year 2 was supposed to be the explosion, because Arizona didn't waste time. March 2020, the Cardinals pulled off what felt like a robbery. They traded for D-Hop, sending David Johnson and a second-round pick to Houston. He wasn't just any addition, he was arguably the best pass catcher in football, instantly altering defensive game plans across the league. And the front office didn't stop there. They had already grabbed running back Keon Drake in late 2019, a shifty back who immediately ignited the run game. They even reinforced the trenches, beefing up the offensive line so Murray wouldn't have to escape pressure on every snap. On defense, they spent their first-round pick on Clemson's Isaiah Simmons, a 6'4" Swiss Army knife linebacker meant to erase mismatches all over the field. And for Kyler, this was different. This wasn't just development, these were weapons around him. Cliff said it himself, bringing in D-Hop for a young quarterback is huge, and you could tell, this wasn't subtle. Arizona wasn't easing into contention. They were pushing all their chips to the middle and telling the league, we believe in him. Then the season starts, and for a while, it feels like the bet is paying off. The season signature moment came in mid-November, the now legendary Hail Murray. Down 4 with 11 seconds left against the Bills, Kyler scrambles left. Then that backyard football instincts kick in. You know, that one where you say this the last play for the Super Bowl, and everybody go deep. Well, he launches it 50 yards into the end zone. 3 defenders around D-Hop, but it didn't matter. The funny thing about this play is around this time, I remember a lot of people saying there were magnets in his gloves. But hell, magnets or not, that was one hell of a catch. And when his feet hit the turf, even the limited COVID crowd erupted. They called it the Hail Murray, and that play, it wasn't just a highlight, it was a statement.
There was no reason other than the fact that he's DeAndre Hopkins for Kyler Murray to throw this ball.
Fully understand why Bill O'Brien is no longer a head coach in the National Football League. That's who you choose to let go. Clearly one of the best wide receivers in football.
That was the kind of moment MVP campaigns are built on, the kind of moment where even people who don't like you have to nod. Later, Kyler even admitted he'd never thrown a Hail Mary before in his career.
Kyler, have you ever completed a Hail Mary before, or any play like that in your career?
No, I was the first.
Through mid-season, Arizona looked like a juggernaut. The Cardinals sat at 6-3 atop the NFC West, and Kyler was piling up video game-like stats and started racking up multiple NFC Offensive Week nods. Then the media started whispering MVP.
Yeah, he'll be an MVP. He'll have an MVP award within the next 3 seasons. Look, he's putting himself on the map right now.
This guy's going to take the league by storm. He's going to continue to play. Sky's the limit for this guy, and Arizona, is in really good shape.
Every Monday morning sports show seemed to start with his name. 6 touchdowns, 400 yards, highlight runs. The buzz was defying. Phoenix was buzzing about playoffs, and the whole division wondered if Kyler might single-handedly carry this team on his back. But here's where the temperature changes, because momentum is easy in September. It's different in December, because Arizona dropped its 5 of its final 7 games, stumbling to a disappointing 8-8 finish. Drives that look automatic in October now stalled out. Turnovers crept in, and that Hail Murray magic felt like a distant memory as the offense struggled to score in December. And it got worse. A late season shoulder injury took some of Kyler's power and forced him out of the finale. Without their leader at full strength, the Cardinals collapsed in overtime, and the playoff door quietly shut on this crazy season. Now here's where it gets a little bit rough, because statistically Offensively, they for sure got better. Kyler had almost 4,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, and even 11 rushing scores, his first Pro Bowl nod. D-Hop breaks franchise receiving records, and the Cardinals doubled their win total from the year before. On paper, this is a successful year too, but the feeling, it wasn't clean because people start noticing a pattern. Hot starts, cold finishes, explosive moments, late season fades. Was Cliff's scheme getting figured out? Was the defense adjusting to Kyler's tendencies? Or was it durability, the hits adding up on a 5'10 quarterback built like a PG? Nobody had the answers yet, but the questions were louder than they were the year before. And here's how it starts. Not with failure, not with disaster, but with small inconsistencies. The ceiling with Kyler still sky high, but the cracks, they were starting to show. By year 3, the Cardinals were done with the baby steps. They were going all in on winning now. In the spring, the front office swung for the fences. On defense, they bring in 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, J.J. Watt. On offense, they bring in A.J. Green on a 1-year deal. And in the draft, they spent their first round pick on linebacker Xavier Collins. This was no longer a team in their rebuilding phase. They were contenders stocked with talent. D-Hop still commanded one end of the field, and now Kyler had help on the other side of the ball. This wasn't, let's see what happens. This was all in. And for 2 months, it looked genius. Game after game, the Cardinals piled up points and wins. They raced to a 7-0 record, the franchise's best start in 47 years, and sat alone in the NFL as the last unbeaten team. Kyler was moving like he was in complete control, calm in the pocket, accurate, efficient. The numbers stacked up quick, 20 touchdowns through 7 games, even tying Kurt Warner's record with 5 games of 100+ passer rating, and actually led the league with a 112.1 rating. The offense was suddenly unstoppable. Every Sunday, they put on a show. He drops 4 touchdowns on Cleveland. He outduels the Rams. National media starts whispering MVP again. In the power rankings, NFL had Arizona #1 for 4 weeks straight midway through the season. And here's what made it different. It didn't feel fluky. The offense was balanced. Drake had already helped stabilize the run game the year before. The line looked steadier and the play calling felt sharper. D-Hop called Kyler Baby Yoda and it stuck. Small, quiet, powerful. The force was strong, but here's where the story turns. Because for the 3rd year in a row, by the time the calendar flipped to December, that's when the problems started to show up. Injuries bit hard. Watt's season was cut short in week 8. Hopkins missed time with a knee and hamstring setback, and Kyler himself sat out 3 games with a twisted ankle. And then week 15, a 1-11 Detroit Lions came in and stoned the Cards 30-12. It was a national disgrace. No rhythm, no fire, no urgency. After the game, Kyler even said they weren't prepared and Detroit played harder.
There's nothing to it other than, they were hungrier than us, they played harder than us, and we didn't execute.
That's not what you want to say when you're the best team in football, and it didn't stop there. They lose 4 of their last 5. From 10-2 to limping into the playoffs. The same pattern creeping back in. Hot starts, cold finish. And this time, the body language is louder. Cameras caught Kyler frustrated on the sideline. Head down, snapping at moments. The calm confidence from October looked thinner in December. Hell, after one loss, when asked about a costly interception, he said flat out, schematically, we're kind of That's not subtle, that's not private. This is a quarterback basically calling out his head coach, and then the vibe shifts. Then comes the playoff game, Monday Night Football. Division rival Rams. In LA, the Cardinals offense looked pathetic. Kyler was harassed on every down. His confidence evaporated under the Rams' pressure. The defiant moment, and probably the season's lowest point, came early in the second quarter. Backed up on his own end zone with the D-line closing in, he panicked and flung the ball away straight into the arms of DB David Long for a 3-yard pick six, the shortest pick six in NFL playoff history. And by halftime, Arizona was down 21-0. In the entire first half, the Cardinals only mustered 40 yards. The game ended 34-11. Baby Yoda was officially grounded. Kyler's final stat line, 137 yards, 2 interceptions. And trust, it was as bad as it looks. Just like that, the season was done. And the worst part, it didn't look competitive. It looked unprepared. And that's the difference between talent and readiness. The Rams looked like they knew exactly what was coming. The Cardinals looked surprised. Cliff even admitted they started hot, but when adversity hit, they didn't respond well. That's a leadership issue, a preparation issue. And then the question swirled, had Cliff and Kyler been studying enough film? Why did the explosive offense look so clueless by December? People started to take notice that Kyler's late season drop off as an obvious deficiency. Some blamed the ankle, some pointed out the offensive game plans, but all agreed on one thing. This was not the march into the playoff Cardinals fans had been dreaming of. The problem isn't ability, it was control, consistency, command. 3 years in, the wins had climbed 5, 5 to 8 to 11. On paper, it's progress, but the ending felt worse than the record. Arizona had pushed their chips all in on Kyler, and he showed he could get them to the dance, but not through it. And for the first time since draft night, people weren't asking about how high the ceiling was. They were asking why it kept cracking. Then July 22 dawned, with Arizona ownership and front office convinced Kyler Murray was their guy. They had handed him a 5-year extension worth $230 million, including roughly $160 million guaranteed. $46 million a year? At the moment, that's more than Patrick Mahomes on the annual average. Like, really think about that. After a playoff collapse, after 2 late season fades, the Cardinals looked at all that and said, nope, he's still our guy. This was a bet, a massive one, and for about 4 days, it felt normal. Then something in the contract got leaked.
When I first saw this on Twitter, I'm like, this got to be a joke. This is somebody. This is some stuff that's not real.
It is called an independent study amendum.
For lack of a better word, this is a GD shame that they just gave a man $230 million and they got to stipulate that you take your ass home and study.
That film study must be uninterrupted. No second screening. You can't be scrolling Twitter or watching television or playing Call of Duty.
And that is from the Monday after training camp ends through the last game on the schedule, including the playoffs.
He needs to study X number of hours for it, it turns out, a week, or they can void the contract at any time.
The Cardinals were requiring 4 mandatory hours of independent film study per week. No TV, no phone, no video games, no distraction. And the fact they had to put that in his contract, the internet exploded. Call of Duty calls start trending, memes everywhere, jokes about controllers and headsets. The media start laughing at the idea that a quarterback making $230 million needed a homework assignment. Think about that. You just became one of the highest paid quarterbacks in NFL history, and the first thing people are talking about is whether you study enough. That's not normal. That's humiliating. Teams don't add clauses like that unless they're worried. You don't legally require film study if you fully trust the habits. Kyler himself was heated. He held an emergency press conference, 11 minutes of frustration. He runs down the resume: undefeated in high school, Heisman winner, rookie of the year, Pro Bowler.
And it's almost a joke, you know. I'm flattered. You know, I'm honestly flattered that y'all think that at my size I can go out there and not prepare for the game and not, not take it serious. And so I'm a list of accolades. You know, to go 43-0 in high school in Texas. Some are going to say, oh, it's high school. That's cool, but nobody else has done it. Go to college, win the Heisman, get drafted number 1 overall to the NFL, get drafted number 9 overall to MLB. Again, no one's ever done it. Offensive Rookie of the Year, 2-time Pro Bowler. And you know, I'm not 6'7", 230. I don't throw the ball 85 yards. I'm already behind the 8 ball.
And you could hear it in his voice. He wasn't joking, slightly embarrassed. That same night, the Cardinals quietly removed the clause and issued a short statement after seeing a distraction that it created.
Cardinals, what are you doing? Like, I literally tweeted back at their account today, log off for a couple of days.
I think removing it only adds another log on the fire to this story.
I think it shows a lack of trust in the player that you even have to put something in a contract like this.
But the damage was done. To fans and the media, it felt like proof that the organization had lost faith. In the locker room, veteran tackle Kelvin Beachum said that if a player needs it in writing to do his job, there was already trouble brewing. For days, Kyler was dragged on TV and social media. As the controversy swirled, another narrative only added fuel to the fire: his love for video games. See, back in 2021, he joined FaZe Clan and called it the Nike of gaming.
I might as well, join the best of the best. I tell people all the time, FaZe is like Nike.
He streamed on Twitch and regularly talked about gaming as a passion.
The Xbox 360 came out, and Call of Duty was one of the first games that launched with the console. My grandpa, my mom's dad, served 30 years in the Army and the Navy. So I was really, really passionate about what he did, wanting to be involved and wanting to understand what he did more.
Originally, it wouldn't have been a problem. Everyone games. But when the contract clause got leaked, everybody started side-eyeing him. Suddenly, it looked like Murray's passion might be taking his focus away from football. Then the question started swirling. Was Kyler spending more hours grinding Call of Duty than learning blitz pickups? And then people started putting 2 and 2 together, because those late season fades started to happen around the time a new Call of Duty was released.
Before Call of Duty is released in the fall, he averages 22.5 fantasy points per game, and after it's released every fall, he averages 17.4 fantasy points per game.
COD double XP weekends, he becomes a worse quarterback. His passer rating drops 7.77 points. There's no other explanation for this massive drop-off outside of the fact that Kyler is just playing too much COD.
So now everything started to make sense. He always starts hot, and then when Call of Duty comes out, he cools off. Right or wrong, perception is reality, and the perception was shifting fast. Then the season finally starts, but D-Hop was suspended for the first 6 games, leaving Kyler without a top target. The offense looks flat, but there's a moment in week 2 against the Raiders where he launched a wild comeback by scrambling for 21 seconds to convert a 85-yard 2-point try. A play even coaches dubbed magical, but those moments were exceptions, and it doesn't last. They started stacking losses, and the sideline gets tense. By mid-season, you could tell that there were problems in the locker room. In a Thursday night game against the Saints, cameras caught Kyler storming onto the sideline during a timeout to confront Cliff. D-Hop went in to separate him, but the damage was done. Another national viral moment of dysfunction. By then, Arizona record has slipped to 4-8, well out of playoff contention. And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because now the homework clause doesn't feel random, it feels connected. The offense looks unprepared late in games. Clock management issues, communication breakdowns, body language frustrations. Is this all Kyler? No, but he's the only one making $46 million a year. Leadership looks different at that price. Finally came the night that cemented the meltdown on Monday Night Football in week 14. On the very first drive, after a short run to the right, Kyler planted to shake a defender and suddenly collapsed to find out he had just torn his ACL. Season over. Just like that, the stadium goes quiet, and in that moment, everything crashes together. The contract drama, the film study clause, the gaming jokes, the late season dips, the sideline tension, all of it. Arizona finished 4-13. From that 7-0 start in 2021 to a total collapse in 12 months. In the aftermath, Arizona hit the reset button again. January 9th, 2023, the team announced that Cliff was out and GM Steve Keim was stepping away due to health issues. Inside the building, there were rumors that the season felt like they were watching a slow motion train wreck. Yet, even after all the mess, the message remained: Kyler was still their franchise quarterback. The start of 2023 began in press conferences with owner Michael Bidwill speaking of hunting for their next leaders who could finally bring the best out of Kyler. He was even involved with the search of his own head coach and GM. Every time a reporter hinted at drafting a new quarterback or moving on from Kyler, Bidwill just ignored them. The message was clear: Kyler was their franchise QB, end of story. Then he hired Monty Ossenfort from Tennessee and Jonathan Gannon from Philly, a defensive coordinator who had just came off a Super Bowl run. And right away, Gannon goes all in. He calls Kyler elite, saying he wouldn't have even taken a job if Kyler wasn't there.
They said, why do you want to take this job? Well, not many open jobs have a franchise quarterback, that's why.
That says a lot. A coach tying his future to a quarterback coming off an ACL tear and public embarrassment. And he promised to build everything around him. And again, it sounds good, but we've heard this before. Ossenfort started reshaping the roster. He trades down in a draft with Houston, picks up extra first-round capital for 2024. Some insurance, little just in case. They then draft Paris Johnson Jr., a tackle to protect Kyler's blind side. They move off expensive veterans, strip down the roster. It looked like they was preparing for another rebuild. But see, you don't fire the coach, let go of the GM, overhaul the roster, and keep the quarterback unless you're absolutely certain he's the one, or unless you're financially stuck. In Kyler's contract, that's not movable. The entire offseason, Kyler was grinding through ACL rehab. The team limped into the season behind journeyman backups, Colt McCoy and later Josh Dobbs. They opened 1-8, but to Jonathan's credit, the new-look Cardinals played hard. The locker room had this fighting willpower about them, which set the stage for the return of Kyler in week 10, almost exactly 11 months after tearing his knee. In his first game back, that old Kyler showed up. He scrambles, hits 20 miles per hour, escapes pressure, leads the game-winning drive against Atlanta. The stadium comes alive. That familiar electricity is back. But this is the thing about Kyler. He can make you forget everything for a play, for a drive, a moment. But moments aren't full seasons, and the rest of 2023 just flashes. A 40-yard bomb to Hollywood Brown here, a broken play scramble that looks impossible there, then a misread, a stalled red zone drive, a quiet fourth quarter. The new offense under Drew Petzing is more structured, more controlled, less backyard chaos. Kyler has to operate within it, and sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. As the season wrapped up, Arizona limped to only 4 wins again and landed the top pick of the 2024 draft. Yet, if you turned into the locker room or press conferences, you will hear nothing but optimism. Coach John was relentless in praising Kyler's growth, how he embraced the new playbook, all good signs. But the league was still waiting for the season where it all connects, waiting for the year where it doesn't collapse late, waiting for proof that that $230 million bet wasn't a waste. And here's where it stops being a coincidence and start feeling like a routine. Zoom out from the flashy highlights, zoom out from the excuses, and look at the timeline. 2020, Arizona is 6-3, Kyler is cooking, MVP whispers. Then they finish 8-8 and miss the playoffs. 2021, 7-0 start, 10-2 at one point. Their name is brought up as the best team in football, but then they collapse, limp into the playoffs, then was embarrassed on Monday night. 2022, flashes early, wild comeback moments. Season unravels, then he tears his ACL. Even the seasons that weren't great, the pattern is the same. September, Kyler looks different, fast, confident, decisive. Late November, he looks hesitant, frustrated, unprepared. And that's when the questions start feeling louder, because defenses adjust. They study tendencies, they add a spy, they close throwing lane. They make him win from structure, and the league adjusted. The real question was whether Kyler did. And when the adjustment didn't show up consistently, the story writes itself. Then his character concerns started to show up more and more. You could see it on the sideline and in the post game. He wore his heart on his sleeve. Even ex-teammate Patrick Peterson said, you see Kyler pouting, crashing out on the head coach, calling out the offensive scheme. You see it every time they're on TV.
Saying Kyler Murray don't care about nobody but Kyler Murray. That's just a matter of the fact.
Some people call it passion, others call it immaturity. Either way, the optics matter, because when you're 5'10", got a $230 million contract, and supposed to be the franchise, every camera is on you. Then there's the durability talks. Kyler's tough, nobody questions that, but he's also the smallest starting quarterback in the league. 2020, shoulder injury late in the year, offense dips. 2021, ankle sprain, and he missed some games. 2022, that's when he tore his ACL and his season was cut short. NFL analysts back in 2019 advised defenses to designate a spy on Murray and wrap him up, noting that he does not like to be hit. Those extra eyes and extra hits took their toll. The very trait that made him special, his breakaway speed and exclusiveness, became a liability when he kept absorbing big shots. And then the leadership conversation gets real. Off the field, the concerns had turned from will he win to will he lead. Comments started to surface from those who had been lined up next to him on the field.
There's a lot of criticism of Kyler. What does he have to do, in your opinion, to be great?
Grow up. Be a man and grow up. Like, it's not complicated. You got to be a leader of men.
This wasn't some anonymous source. This was coming from his own teammates.
Because his team is looking at him for that leadership role. And that's all I was saying, to help sharpen up on his leadership skills, on how his teammates are going to perceive him. And
when multiple veterans question your maturity, then you know it must be real, and that narrative sticks.
I don't see enough moments where he's the guy in people's ears. He's the guy leading the football team, speaking life into who they are.
And this is how the spiral builds. It's not just one bad season, not one injury, not one sideline clip. It's repetition, hot starts, cold finishes, flashy plays, frustrated reactions, injuries, and excuses over and over. And the scariest part, the talent is still undeniable. But when you watch him late in the season, like they say after Call of Duty drops, all that flash that I just mentioned go out the window. And we must talk about year 7. That's not just a random number, that's the checkpoint. By year 7, the league usually knows what you are. Not potential, not projection, not wait until next year. And see, Kyler isn't the first quarterback under 6 feet to walk into the NFL with doubters. Drew Brees was barely 6 foot. Russell Wilson is about 5'11". Mike Vick, 6 foot on a good day. And even Joe Theismann, right around the same mark. And this is the thing, height didn't stop them. By year 7, Drew Brees had already turned the franchise around. He took the Saints to an NFC championship in his first season and established himself as the guy, leader, culture setter, film junkie, obsessive. Russell Wilson, 2 Super Bowls in his first 7 years, 1 ring, never had a losing season, and never was his preparation questioned. By year 7, talent either matures or it plateaus. So what about Kyler? Entering 2025, his 7th season in the league, the resume looks thin. 1 playoff appearance, 0 playoff wins, 2 Pro Bowls, multiple injury-shortened seasons, a career record under 500 as a starter. And don't get me wrong, the numbers were there in stretches, but it didn't translate into anything. Was he just a good stat, bad team quarterback? Was the ceiling lower than we thought? At the start of the season, he claimed to feel very healthy. He looked better at reading defenses, and the offense opened up the year with some optimism. But fate was right around the corner. In week 5 versus the Titans, on the weirdest play ever, it resulted in a foot injury. And just like that, his 7th year was over. He played only 5 games, and over those starts, he completed 110 of 161 passes for just 962 yards, 6 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He even got loose for a $173 and even scored once on the ground. But those flashes of a dual threat magic only reminded everyone what they were missing. With Kyler's sideline, Arizona fell apart. They tied the Jets, Titans, and Raiders with the league's worst 3-14 record, setting a franchise record for losses and ended the year on a 9-game losing streak. Gannon got fired, the hype died, and everyone left wondering, will Arizona finally move on from Kyler? NFL careers don't usually just explode over one night. It's the constant drama and headlines that make people start to question your ability. It's just the small cracks over time, missed roles, late season fades, injuries that lingered, narratives that stick. And if you really wanted to write a handbook called How to Kill an NFL Career, Kyler's story would be a chapter you couldn't ignore. Because look at the investment. Arizona didn't half commit. They drafted him first overall, fired a coach after 1 year to make room for him, brought in a coach who they thought was his best fit. They built the offense around him, put some weapons out there, gave him 230 M's. They hit the reset on the franchise twice, and in 7 seasons, he gave them only 1 playoff appearance. And that's not normal for a quarterback to get so many chances. His talent was obvious, that's why they kept betting. But the NFL doesn't grade on flashes, it grades on finishes, playoff runs, and too often the finishes weren't there. And it seems like Arizona have finally came to their senses, because once the beginning of the new season starts, Kyler and Arizona are going to go their separate ways. The only question left that I want you to answer down in the comments is, will Kyler be able to revive his career somewhere else, or is it time for him to return to the baseball diamond since the Athletics still have his baseball rights and still have him under contract?
No, I'm an Arizona Cardinal. You know, I've done nothing but, you know, give my all to the Cardinals. We'll continue to do that. Yeah, so I'm not really too worried about my future as a Cardinals.